What's up, YouTube? We're back post YCS Hartford with a bunch of us that actually went to Hartford, and then me who sat at home and played Zero Yu-Gi-Oh all weekend. So
that was the right decision.
I'm gonna sit and watch them talk about their experience, talk about the decks that topped, the deck that won, decks they think should have done better, so on and so forth. And I'll be here.
Cool.
Not all at once, though.
So I guess, yeah, who wants to go first?
I'll go first.
Alright, so who wants to start?
Yeah, so for those of you who don't know me, I guess Calvin Tahan should be hard not to know me, but this is my Midwest Gaming debut on both the team at YCS and then I guess the podcast. So I wanted to share kind of my views on how my experience was as a seasoned veteran and also as like new blood to the team, and then let you guys like correct me from there because I think that's the best format. So I went to the event thinking that Sword Soul was the best deck. I think I ended up being right. I think it had the most appearances in top 32, tied with I guess like Punk Piles, but those are just I consider those different decks. Like Punk Adventurer is different than like Punk Therion, so I think Sword Soul had the most cuts. And then I think Despia was the deck to beat. That was.
Wait, was anyone talking?
Sort of. Yeah, can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, I can hear you.
I think Despia is like this crazy good deck.
And, like straight.
But the entire room kind of built to beat it. And it wasn't like that good compared to like how much hate there was for it. So it's like just being targeted overall, and I didn't feel like it was the best deck to play. I liked Plunder a lot. I think we were talking about that a little bit. I definitely had some hate, like excessive side hate for that deck because that's a hard deck to beat. And I think it does really well throughout the format. Since the beginning of the year, it's been placing in top 32. I think it's kind of looked at as like a joke deck, and I think it's like rather definitively a tier 1 deck. If not, like if we haven't been able to decide before, I certainly think we can decide now. Even if like only 3 or 4 of it top, that deck's just like a house. Really cool deck. But yeah, I think Sword Soul was the deck to play. Obviously, Mystic Mind was the card to play. I don't think that Striker is the best deck just because it won. But yeah, I mean, my experience, I went 9-0 day 1. I felt really good about my deck. Obviously, I lost instantly in top 32. That's how it goes. But I thought this was a great event. I went in expecting to play like a different deck every single round, and then kind of expecting later in the tournament to play mainly only Sword Soul mirrors, and that's exactly how my tournament went. I played literally a different deck every round from round 1 through 7, and then like 3 Sword Soul mirrors in a row, and then maybe like 1 Despia deck here and there, and then I played Punk at top 32. I think that makes for a good format. I think obviously we can talk all day about Mystic Mind, but I'm sure we're gonna. But that card is not in the game. I think this format's actually great. That's about all I have to say.
Yeah, as someone who wasn't there, I think I agree with that. There was a lot of diversity in top 32 when I was looking at the pie chart, and like, yeah, Mystic Mine is a card that I don't really think should exist. But even with that card in play, there's still a lot of variety, and that's always good to see. So, what about you, Nick? What was your like experience? Because I think it was a little bit different than him. I think you had less variety, right?
Yeah, so I came into the event playing Plunder. I'm just convinced that that's like one of the top like 2 decks in the game right now, and the only reason why people don't play it is because it's like has like the kind of idea that it's just cancer. But like the deck just like the board is just you make the boards in such a simpler amount of time than like a Punk Therion deck, and it's just so much better. Like you need specific outs to this board, like either in your main deck or you just instantly lose. Like if you go first, you have like a 90% chance to win the game. Now that percentage is like pulled out of my ass, but like it plays through like every hand trap except like exactly Ash, and like if your hand's good enough, Ash just doesn't matter. So now I had the opposite experience, I think, as Calvin, where I played 7 Sword Souls for my 11 rounds, 2 of which were like going second Sword Soul. which is another reason why I decided to play the Flunder deck, because I just felt like a lot of people were on that deck. From the people I were talking to, they were going to say, "Oh, I'm going to play Blind Stick and Sword Soul." I was like, "Okay, let me just play the deck that punishes you hardest for that." And then it didn't matter what kind of board breakers they had; they just immediately lost because of all the follow up. So I mean, the deck performed really well. It's good against Sword Soul. I think it's the only deck in the game right now that has like an immediate "I win the game if I draw it" that card through Shifter. It makes Sword Soul like they can play through Shifter, but what is the big thing that Shifter has versus that matchup is their follow up, or the amount of cards that it takes for them to make their same board. It takes a lot more. So I had to deal with like a Bear and Shishao after I shifted them, but they'll do it with like, and they'll have 0 cards in hand. So you just break that board, and then they have literally nothing against your full Flunder engine. It's just the best deck like to keep going with their engine to just recur to like turn 3, 4, 5 in the game right now. I unfortunately lost a mirror in top 32. The way I constructed my deck was it was really, really bad in the mirror match because I was playing Jack in the hand. And that's just basically another dead card in the mirror. So I came into it with like 6 dead cards through Shifter and Jack in the hand and DD Crow. It just made my game 1 so bad. He was playing Featherstorm. But overall, I enjoyed the deck's the deck's performance. I was of the mindset that Zombie World wasn't a card anymore. With the Therions and with the new Punk card coming out, people were having to side more aggressively for that. So when you have Sword Soul, Despia, and that, the Zombie Worlds are just going to come out of the side deck for more space for those 3 decks. And that seemed to be true. I didn't play against a single Zombie World that weekend. So
Interesting.
Calvin, you played Dom in top 32, right?
Yeah, I played Dom. Our match was not very interactive. Yeah, I don't like to complain about losing, so I'm not gonna. But I guess like because we're 2 really high-profile players, like it's probably better just to like say what actually happened. Game 3, I opened 3 of my Rotas, which are all hard once per turn. I think the chance of opening a 3 of in 40 is like probably less than like 0.1%, or certainly a low number. So even though I could play, you're against like a heavy combo deck. You cannot win 2 dead cards. So it was just over. But yeah, there's like no reason to talk about it. But that's what happened. I opened all 3. I was like really tilted.
Yeah, that's unfortunate, but.
And it's one of those. It's like those cards are never going to be sided out. They're always going to be in your main deck. So it's just like every single deck in Yu-Gi-Oh can brick, right? Like even the best deck ever can still draw like 3 1-0s that or 3 3-0s that they're playing 3 of, and that's just the game. Like, yeah.
That's true.
That happened to me as well when I was playing Calvin like round 8, I think. My game 1 opening hand against Calvin Gate going second was Patrick, Polly, and 3 chains.
Oh my god.
Oh no. So, shoot, you played the plant Despia deck, right? The Predaplant one? So what made you switch from that? Because you have been talking about and playing a bit of Drytron lately, I think. So what made you switch from that to the plant deck?
Well, the reason I played Drytron was because I can search deep. There was like before the Despia structure deck, the deck was still good enough. Honestly, 1 Ben 10 has not much difference than 2 Ben 10, to be honest. You kind of just like get an upgrade on your Ida 10, and that's it. That's really the only thing it changed. On the other hand, kill the Band of Aurora don't kill the way I play the deck.
Oh, yeah, true.
Yeah, there's no way I can reset like D-Barrier or other things going first, and also Hero of Perfection just gets super poly years a day. It's like I don't want to play that deck at all.
That's fair. What are your thoughts? Oh, go ahead, Calvin.
Yeah, it's really funny because I feel like Drytron was like the meta call for the event, kind of, and I only feel that way in hindsight. Like I certainly wouldn't have like been happy about going into the event and playing it, but I think Droll saw a very like low play because it's just not good against Sword Soul, and it's like not great against Despia because the standby phase or like draw phase stuff they can do. And then I feel like the reason Sword Soul, I theory Sword Soul so hard was because Vishuda and like the deck in general just traded really well into decks that have like a Mirror Jade or like the Mirror Match, decks that have like a soft interrupt or like a soft negate. But Sword Soul cannot deal with like multiple Omni negates. So if they're like searching Herald of Orange and like having perfection, you can't do anything. Drytron is actually like by far and away Sword Soul's worst matchup. And I know like the meme like, oh, you can just make the white guy like Chaofeng, right? Like that you go first and if they don't draw Droplet. But if you go second, you can crack any board in the game, but you cannot crack a Drytron board. There's nothing you can do. So it's like actually crazy that if you were going to the event with Drytron, knowing how many Sword Soul players there would be, I think it was actually a really hot deck to play.
But that type of balance never happened, I think.
Yeah. What do you guys think of Justin's list? Because he, if I recall correctly, he wasn't playing the Herald, right?
No.
He was playing Vanity's Ruler. It reminds me of the like old Necros decks from like 2 years ago, where like you just searched Vanity's Ruler, just sat on it for a turn, and then they either have the out and they try to push and kill you, or you don't and you just kill them next turn. I mean, Vanity's Ruler is like kind of has the same purpose as Ultimateness, except it can't get super polyed. But like you have more things that can out the ruler, things like Chalice that Ultimateness normally can be able to negate. But I mean, the story of the event was like the 3 main deck Mystic Mine, right, for him. I saw the meme passing around of the screenshot of his written coverage where it was like him and his opponent draw passing for 20 turns.
Yeah. It's really unfortunate that he mained the set rotation to out Mystic Mine too, and he drew both of his other field spells before he drew the set rotation. I think that's what happened in top 4. Like he cycled some back with Sanctuary and then drew the field spells before he drew the set rotation. But
I was a big fan of Drytron for this event too. With the magic keys, I thought that was the move, especially since setting up a Vanity's or a Vanity's Ruler with the magic key spell and trap negate pretty much auto wins versus Droplet and most decks, because most decks can't out that card.
Yeah, they have to have exactly Droplet, discard, trap, or else they lose. That's pretty
and
good.
The only deck that can actually beat that is Flunder, but with them having 2 spell and trap negates, that still makes it a little difficult for the deck to even play.
You'll need like exactly Rabina or something.
Yeah, you need Rabina plus like other good stuff.
Well, talking about that, at the very early beginning, like round 2, I think, I saw Justin was playing. And then he ended with whatever we just said, Ruler plus the Magic Key Counter Trap, and his opponent's hand was Droplet, Lightning Storm, Mystic.
It was what now?
Storm Mine.
It was Droplet, Mine, Storm.
Yeah, that's like an FTK versus most decks.
Yeah, I'd better have it, I guess.
Yeah.
Kody, what did you end up playing for the tournament?
So I had a really difficult time choosing. I was at the airport for 11 hours, so I had to decide whether to play Despia, Sword Soul, or the Sangan deck, or a variation of that. And I'm very disappointed I didn't play the Sangan variation, because I saw that Hani actually topped with a list very similar to the one I played at the PPG. With like, it was basically almost card for card where I would have played at Hartford. It's on my DB. But I decided on playing Therion, Punks, Synchro. And I felt like it was a good meta call versus the Sword Soul, because like I wanted a deck that played through D barrier, but also had like a very high ceiling to play through like the bad decks in Swiss.
Sure, makes sense. Daniel, what did you play? I don't remember.
Yeah, that's okay. So I played Sword Soul. Just like Kody, I had a really hard time deciding what to play. Like I had a few ideas for trying to innovate before the ban list came out. And then once the ban list came out, I just really had nothing. So I'd been testing with one of my friends, and he just kept waxing me over and over again with Sword Soul. And, anyone who knows me will say, like, I always play the combo deck. Just always, it's better to have a higher ceiling in general. But I just kept getting destroyed by Sword Soul. I just couldn't beat it. he'd go like 11-3 against me over a night of testing.
Jeez.
So I said, oh, if you can't beat them, you might as well join them. And I came into like that idea. I came into Sword Soul with a few observations. The first of which is one that I know Calvin shared. That Vessel for the Heavenly Dragon cycle was not a good card. It's effectively only good if you're playing.
Yep.
But any card that dumps and adds has to be good if you can figure out the cards to dump and add. So I put Worms into DB, and I looked for all the cards that you could possibly send with Vessel. And so I played Virtual World 2-2, so that even if I didn't have 10s, like let's say Moye got impermed or something, I could still make it 10.
Oh, shit.
And it turns out you can, so like instead of ending on 2 8s and a 10, if you play 2-2, you can end on 2 10s and an 8 a lot more often. So you can have like Fleur before you do other stuff, or you can make Yang Yang Long Yon if you want. And I was pretty confident. I felt really good about the mirror. I just didn't feel really good about Dimensional Barrier, but you know, unfortunately, that's a part of the game. I knew I wanted to play Mystic Mine. I knew I wanted to play all the unfair cards because Yu-Gi-Oh's about playing cards you shouldn't be allowed to play. But, you know, unfortunately, my tournament just didn't turn out the way I wanted it to. Definitely some mistakes on my end, some better play I could have done. And then also, at one point, I sat under Mystic Mine for like 20 turns, maybe longer, waiting to draw Heavenly Dragon Cycle, and I drew all my worms before I drew a copy of it.
Oh,
So that
no.
was the end of my tournament.
Oh, no. That's unfortunate.
I think I'm the only player who chopped that didn't main or side mine.
Yeah, that was absolutely the card for the event.
Yeah, I was curious to see how many copies of mine were in people's main and side deck in top 32. It's like I feel like it's approaching like 80 copies of mine throughout everyone there.
Yeah, I'm probably not the only one who didn't play it, but like I was looking at all the deck lists and I definitely feel like naked. I was like, okay, I clearly like missed the memo on this one.
Yeah.
But yeah, mine is crazy. It was mainly for Despia, but it turned out to be good versus everything.
Yeah, I think people just kind of didn't realize that, you know, Adventure was kind of pulling out of the meta a little bit, or at least as nearly as impressive it was once with the Prankid deck, where it's like now only really fit in its own category of deck versus like being able to be in everything, right? So like Sword Soul and Despia just don't play the Adventure engine, which paired up so well against mine to be able to Draco back bounce. So like there wasn't really a format correction for that. So everyone just started putting mine in their deck because no one has outs to it. And
Yeah,
you
so-
just win game one
Oh, very
immediately.
cool.
Dracoback sort of served as a gatekeeper, a lot like right when I started playing Diamond Direwolf served as a gatekeeper. Like any deck could make a rank 4. So any trap card just read negate the summon of Diamond Direwolf.
Yeah.
And in much the same way, like any Floodgate just does get bounced by Dracoback.
Yeah. That's kind of why I wanted to play a deck with adventure cards, because I knew how high the representation of mine would be. But I felt like adventure cards were really good for me, at least for me.
Oh, they're definitely really strong.
Mhm.
I was listening to other things.
No, yeah. The adventure package just enabled so many like avenues to play through different boards, especially since most of the boards this format are so lackluster compared to last format.
Mm-hmm. I will say, I guess the adventure, one of the main downsides for it is just the level 10, the Evil Longyang just pairs up so well against that engine. Like you end on like Evil Longyang Shishao against like anything that plays adventures in it. That's just like it's such almost an FTK. Like banishing Fateful, banishing another summon, and then a Shishao negate, probably Blackout set. It's just with a draw off the Evil Longyang, it's just it pairs so good against it. But against Despia, it's pretty good of an engine. So I guess you just kind of a coin flip on what you're going to play against.
So that was kind of my thesis for the event a little bit. Like the what the adventure engine is just I felt like it was so powerful that I was trying to like test Libromancer and test like any deck that could play it, because I wanted to play adventure cards, right? I want to play adventure, and like I want to play Magician Souls ideally and just be like drawing 2. And I realized like overall through testing that like you're gonna draw the bricks a lot, like drawing Draco back is like 8% or 12%, some big number. Like if you play poker, that's like a really big number. You're just going to open Draco back. And that didn't used to matter because the power level of your actual deck, like your Prank Kids deck or whatever you played at the time, was so high that it didn't matter. And now, like, all the decks I was putting Adventure into weren't that high of a power level, and it just wasn't worth the trade-off. So that was, like, the issue I ran into.
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree. I feel like I felt the presence of Garnets in my deck more coming into this event than I had in a very long time, or like engine requirements, however you want to put it.
That's fair.
So, sorry.
Go ahead.
I was going to ask a question to everyone. Do you all think that you made the right choices for this event in terms of deck building and the like? Or in hindsight, are there any changes you made? I know Calvin said he would play Mystic Mine.
I was pretty comfortable with my 55 cards. I disqualify my extra deck. I don't really count those as real cards for my deck particularly. It could be like I literally played Kagari in my extra deck. It just doesn't matter. So, but like of the 55 cards I played, I was pretty happy with all of them. I was looking at the other Flunder decks that topped and seeing the kind of stuff they were playing. Like the guy who got top 8 played 2 Barrier Statue. The guy I lost to played 2 Toucan, and it's like it's food for thought. It's interesting to try and test and see how that goes. But I mean, I guess probably the only regret I made was like not manning more than 1 mine. I feel like playing like maxing out on that card would probably be something good. Now, what I would take out, I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm pretty satisfied with my 40 main deck. I don't think I would want to go to 41. But...
Yeah, I felt pretty comfortable on my list, although there are some changes that I would have made. It was a 50 card main, but I drew unplayable in 2 games, and unfortunately, one of them was round 10 on the bubble, and round 2 against Sword Soul. So that happens when I play like Therion cards in my deck, but I just felt that the trade-off between power and consistency was worth it throughout like a widespread event.
So for me, Ryan Levine from Duelist Academy, built my deck card for card and kind of theored it for this event specifically. And I've been grinding Dueling Book really heavily. Like as soon as I got home from Hartford, I've still been playing, and I haven't changed anything yet, and I just can't win anymore. It's like the format's already corrected, and like my deck, I feel like my deck was perfect for the event specifically. And now that there's been adjustments, it just can't win. And it's crazy, and not Sword Soul in general, but like my specific build, how like the main deck chalices and the hand traps I chose to run and not run, like no Drolls, no Nibiru's, like now it's kind of inverted where like I feel like those cards are great and like now, but for the event specifically, I wouldn't change anything.
What are some of the specific changes you're seeing post Hartford that is making the current version of your deck suboptimal?
So the Punk deck, it just has a lot of, I guess, not traction, but like popularity, and that was a deck where at the time I was only putting specifically good players on it. Like specifically had to be Dom or Hani or like somebody like with tops that would build like a pile that actually worked. And I would know going in like, okay, I can just beat the player. I don't have to be some like random bum playing the deck and just like spewing combos at me. And now it's like everywhere. So it's to the point where like I can't like either dodge or outplay these people. I have to actually build to beat it. So I had to, Droll should probably be in my deck list somewhere. Like Nibiru should probably be played. I don't know what cards are good. I went from, like I said, I thought it was like a heavy 1-for-1 format where like the most I'd have to out is like a Mirror Jade and a Brandon in red or like a Sword Soul Mirror. So now, for example, I probably need Droplet in my deck instead of just Chalice. Like just Chalice doesn't get the job done. So stuff like that.
So this is gonna sound super weird, but I feel like right now, if it's a super Sword Soul heavy format, then combo decks will prevail because I always thought that Sword Soul had a hard time like with big heavy combos because the deck is super good at trading 1-for-1. But the thing about the Punk or the big combo decks is that it loses hard to like Despia. So now I feel like going into like another format, if more Punk and all those other decks are more viable, then Despia will become better.
Yeah, it's a good give and take, right? Because I mean, Despia has the capability of playing things like big super polys or.
Yeah, I built my deck for Sword Soul and I played 7 of them. no Despia.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
And
you
then
said.
now, yeah, because I felt like Despia wasn't like gonna be represented, or it wasn't the deck for Hartford. But now, if Punk Therion's gonna be like more represented, then Despia will be the deck to play.
Yeah, I just think in like an 11 round format, like what a YCS is, Despia just doesn't seem like too good of a deck choice. Because like when I was testing the deck, like you would get hands where it's just like you have Ash and I pass. So like,
Mhm.
I mean, I didn't want to have I don't want to go into an event like that where I'm playing 11 rounds and I'll have hands like that where they have one hand trap and I just can't play. Um, and if we're going into like a more heavier combo format, what happens? People are going to play more hand traps now, and you'll have
Yeah.
those hands where you're playing Despia and you're like, oh, I lose to an Ash, or oh, I can't play around this Crow on my Brandon red. And the more the rounds you're going to play, the more likely that situation's going to happen. So I don't know how comfortable I would be playing Despia um, going
I was
forward
just
right now.
I was just thinking of that because with the combo decks, you're more likely to put in Droplet and Nib, and I always felt that those cards didn't really do as much against Despia.
Hmm.
So that's why I feel like the
Mhm.
shift is going to be more towards that. But again, like if people think that way, then they start playing Sword Soul again. Then of course combo will prevail against that matchup most of the time.
Well, I think like those are all true, and like in general, with all other things being held equal. But Despia has changed in the way it's played, right? So like right when the structure that came out, Nib was absolutely a blank against them. And while now it's still suboptimal, like I wouldn't really want it. If it's in my hand, like there's a universe where they go like allure a bunch of times, summon some masquerades, like poly ad lib away your poly mirror jade and ad lib into a masquerade, and you can try to like trade into a nib on turn one. Like it's not great, but it's not a blank per se.
No, of course it's not a blank, but it's not. It doesn't against Despia. Nib doesn't have as high of an impact like a card
Agreed.
like Ash would.
Yeah. And especially if they're playing the Predaplant deck, like
Oh, if they're
they're
playing the
even more
Predaplant
likely
deck,
to
they're
get
getting
nibbed.
cooked by Nib. Yeah, no.
Well, that's two completely different decks.
No, yeah, the Predaplant deck and Branded Despia are like different.
So I have a question about what you guys feel on a card that Hani played in his side deck that I've been kind of torn on. How do you guys feel about Foolish Return?
Return.
Yeah.
A friend of mine had been playing it for a while since YCS San Diego, so like about 3 weeks back, and I thought it was good because his theory about it was fine, and I actually thought about playing it for this event, but I didn't think I was going to see that much Despia, so I chose not to because I just didn't want to run Crow in a deck that could get like Call by or the other card cross outed.
I
What's
think
that?
it's smart.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry.
I'll tag in. No, go ahead,
Okay,
Dan. Yeah, you first.
no, I don't have a ton to say. I think it's smart. Uh, I like what he said about being able to bring it in against like some other decks and not trigger tragedy is cool. But I feel like especially in the punk combo deck, like especially piloted by like a strong player, they probably don't live for the ad off of tragedy to matter. So I don't know how much of a meaningful difference it is.
I felt like it didn't really do much.
It's
So
oh yeah, go ahead, Calvin.
I think that the posit that Hani said that like it's strictly better against Despia, I think is factually correct. I don't think there's any disputing that. Really, it plays through Mercurier. It can't get called by the Graves. It's like if I had a 10,000 card side deck, this card would be in my side deck, and I would put it inside for Despia every time. But that's not the reality we live in, right? You only have 15 slots, and Crow just has so much coverage against other matchups. I don't think this is a strictly better Crow because you can't put it in against any other deck reliably. Like you said, the Punk deck will just kill you, and like so I don't think I think it's great if it's a one deck format and you're siding only for Despia, then sure. But I don't think it's competitively viable because you have to actually build a side deck, and Crow is just such a better card.
Yeah, it has a high opportunity cost for sure.
Yeah. It also does stuff against Sword Soul, which Foolish Return really doesn't do anything.
Yeah, I mean, like, Crow's just, I feel like, really poor against Sword Soul in general. Like, are you going
I
to
mean,
pro
but
their Vishuda?
at least it can hit like an Ashuna. It's just a better version. Like I wouldn't be putting it in versus Sword Soul, but it's 3 side deck slots that I'd rather have like for other cards that cover more matchups.
That's
Yeah,
what I
mean,
think Calvin is saying.
if you want to look at like a metric of like what decks that'll be popular after Hartford, right? No, I agree that Striker isn't like a particularly good deck right now, but I'm in that matchup, right? I'm never wanting to Foolish Return like an Engage add back into their deck. I would almost always want to DD Crow it. I feel like against like rogue decks, that's when the DD Crow comes to shine. Like against like Salad or against like Striker or against even against the plant deck, anything that's pretty like graveyard oriented, that you want as a card on your opponent's turn, makes me feel more inclined to have Crow into my side deck. Whereas like if I'm just trying to break a board and kill you, in specifically that instance where Hani is playing his deck and he's playing Foolish Return, that makes sense. But just in general, in like any other deck, or even in his deck now, I'm not sure that I would want to keep it in my deck.
So a hot tech I noticed for the weekend, and I was like really regretting not main decking, was Dark Ruler.
I got really close.
No, yeah, I was thinking hard about it, but I didn't feel like I was going to be playing a lot of like big combo decks. I felt that only the people that knew the deck would be playing it.
Mm-hmm. It was definitely in my side, but I was just maybe I was too reserved in thinking that it's just like a bad card against Despia, and I didn't want to have such a neg card in there.
Yeah.
Versus that matchup, but against Sword Soul, it's pretty good.
It's a good card against everything else.
It's just bad when you're going first and like you see a Dark Ruler in your hand, and all of a sudden you only have like 4 potential cards to make a good board and extend past interruptions versus the normal 5.
Yeah, I think Dark Ruler was definitely sauce for this weekend. The other thing, I guess I forgot to mention this when I was setting in my deck, is a lot of people were main decking or side decking Anti-Spell and D-Barrier, both of which are, of course, really unfair, really good cards. But I saw myself losing a lot. Like I'd have D-Barrier set and they'd go, all right, battle phase. I'd be like, oh God. So I would lose, I maybe can set up another board, but they get to set their cards. They might have something to do, something to interact with my Moye or whatever, my Taye on the backswing. So I decided to side deck Judgment sort of as a hedge against like Evenly, Lightning Storm, Dark Ruler, like cards that would obviously be somewhere in people's side deck. So my 6 going first cards were D-Barrier and Judgment instead of D-Barrier Anti-Spell. Because I thought Dark Ruler would be prevalent.
More people are also prepared for Anti-Spell. Like especially when like everybody's siding Twins and against Sword Soul.
Yeah.
Did anybody see Blizzard played at all? That card was bought out, right? And none of the events had it.
It didn't work how people thought it would.
They thought it would outmine.
It doesn't outmine.
But it doesn't.
Yeah.
It's me. Like, I was people.
I know. A friend, Austin was actually like telling me about the sauce, and then I pulled out a box and I showed him the card. I was like, yeah, I'm thinking about bringing the sauce in my deck, but then like we went over it and it just wasn't sauce.
Because it's only activated effects, right?
It's only activated
effects. Yeah. So yeah, I remember seeing a post on that. I was like, that's a strange card to be bought out and sold out at vendors. But interesting.
I felt like there were a lot of hot techs this weekend that like people like played. But if we looked at the top 32 like deck lists, not a lot of the hot techs were like featured in it. Like it was pretty much the standard side deck cards that people would be playing.
That's what I usually like to go for like the starts of new formats is like don't try and reinvent the wheel. Like everyone's like scrambling to get their deck to work. Like you have no reason to go like super extra into your deck and try and think of like some hot spicy deck. Like normally just the simplest answer is the right answer. So like just play your standard 55 card or however many cards you're playing in your deck without trying to be too cute, and it just gets you there.
Yeah. Well, I'm just sad I didn't get a feature.
No feature, yeah.
I was told I was the backup feature for 3-round Unit.
Oh no. That's unfortunate.
Yep.
So maybe some stuff that didn't necessarily make top 32. What were some cool decks or techs that you guys like were seeing in the room that maybe they did make top 32? I haven't looked at all the lists, but maybe they didn't, but they have potential, or you just think it's interesting.
Oh,
I was really surprised that Salad didn't top 32. Like, Baguska is just broken right now against Sword Soul and Despia. Like, Despia has, like, no out to that card. Like,
yeah.
and Sword Soul, you need, like, Chalice or, like, Droplet. But, like, the addition of 3 Circle, I thought would just push the deck over the edge into, like, a top 32 spot, and it just, like, fell flat on its face. And I was kind of disappointed in that.
I didn't really notice like a big or like that it was huge, but what I found concerning was right after round 6 in the pairing system, you were able to see exactly who you played against and what deck they were playing.
Why is that?
On their website. So
on their website, they posted exactly what deck they were on. And I was able to like basically scope out what my opponent was playing before the match even started, which gave me like, of course, a huge advantage if I win the dice roll. To be fair, I only won 3 dice rolls, but still, like it gave me a competitive edge going into the match, seeing what they were playing before the match even started.
That's not anything new for like the top 10 to 20 tables. I know
But it wasn't just 10 to 20, it was
everyone.
Every single person. You could see every player's deck list.
Not every day. I had like few of them missing. I was one of them missing. Actually.
Yeah, a few of them were missing that Konami like didn't know how to categorize it under.
Okay.
But the ones that they did categorize, it was shown.
That's crazy. Yeah, because I know I've done that in the past where if I'm up at like the top tables at a YCS, I'll check the previous round's pairings blog posts, because for the top like 10 to 15 tables, they usually do that, and I'll see if my opponent was up there so I can check their deck.
Exactly, but
top 10 table was always there.
Yeah.
The fact that this happened for literally every person after round 6, I did not find that great.
Yeah, that's pretty insane. And I can imagine that would have been frustrating.
No, yeah, because literally my round 8, I was able to know he was on Flu, and I set up a board to basically beat Flu and not other decks.
Yeah, I actually lost the Iowa Regional. I started 7-0, and in the 8th round I played Alfie Dankelson, and I lost because he didn't main deck an out to mine, and he knew what I was playing. So he won the roll, made me go first, and OTK'd me when I revealed a mine off of my Prosperity. So like if the roll is the only thing that changes, I just win game 1 and have a shot to win the regional, and I didn't because of that, and that was frustrating. But I mean, like, I would have done the same thing if I were him.
Gotta respect it.
I don't know that it's a particularly meaningful change, like a meaningful mistake, simply because, like you said, everyone knows what, like, at least the named players, if not everyone who's doing well, is playing after a few rounds, right? If nothing else, it gives it lessens the edge that people who are thinking ahead and trying to find out what people are playing get, which I think is silly, but not super crazy.
Yeah, on a whole, it probably wasn't super impactful, but like, it definitely has the capability to make an impact on a match here and there if like the deck you're playing is known, and if the card choices you're playing is known. So
exactly, like say you're playing Striker and you're going into a match, like your opponent basically has to go first. You know, like it just gives your opponent an edge
Unless
shouldn't
you're
happen.
playing Demise of the Land, I guess.
Yeah, no, I'm not gonna lie.
Traptor, D-Barrier.
Yeah.
Maybe his whole strategy was, oh, there's going to be a lot of going second decks. Oh, they think I'm on striker. I'm going first. So maybe that might have been like the meta call for him. But I don't like playing striker that way. That, like, me personally.
Yeah, same. I'm thinking like whenever mine is like literally the game plan, I always just think to myself like there's probably just a better core you can use
No, there's just a
than
better
striker
deck that can
cards.
mine.
Yeah, it's just like I don't know why. It's like Adventure Striker for me. I was like, I don't know why you're putting striker cards in an adventure deck when you can just play better archetypes in it.
Like, you could play combo.
Yeah, a combo with the adventure card and just do better. But another deck that I was surprised I didn't see as much representation that I thought was going to see more because of the Therion plant was the Sun Avalon like plant link deck.
No, that deck wasn't. Oh, sorry.
I thought the deck was gonna make some form of representation in the late
Mhm.
days. Like you might see some guy labbing the deck out for like the 2 or 3 weeks, and then bringing it to the table.
I mean, I didn't think it was going to be good because Nib was everywhere, and that deck kind of suffers going through Nib. Like when they Nib Jasmine, like the deck loses hard there, especially since the deck doesn't really have a good follow up.
I have not read a single Sun Avalon card. I don't know what they do.
Oh, it does a lot of searching.
They end on a level 11 rock token.
Yeah, I mean,
indiscriminate amount of attack.
Unless they have their adventure cards or they start off with Therion cards, the deck is extremely fragile.
So I think one of the best questions to ask when you're looking at possible decks to play is like, what problems with other decks does this deck solve? So you look at it as like a dependent, independent variable question. And to my mind, Sun Avalon just doesn't solve any of the problems that other combo decks have, with the exception of not losing to Dimensional Barrier.
But there's another, like, again, the Therion Punk Synchro deck just doesn't lose to D-Barrier. And I'd rather play, like, that deck because it can at least do more through Nib.
Yeah. That's what he's saying, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I almost played against a Sun Avalon deck at the Minneapolis Regional, and then we got repaired, and I lost instead.
Did you have Nibs in your deck, Brian?
In my side, yeah. But I mean, my regional deck wasn't real. I was playing Cup of Ace and Utopia Double.
No, I saw that. It was funny as hell.
It was so bad.
I mean, literally for Hartford, I main decked one token collector. One because it was sendable, and two because I felt like I was going to be seeing a lot of Sword Soul, so it wasn't a bad hand trap.
Yeah, that's fair. All right, so what do we all think of the first place list? I know we've alluded that we don't think Striker is the best deck, and I think that's a pretty common opinion, but what are our thoughts on the list specifically?
I wasn't a fan.
It's just like I can't even.
It was a
I just look
stun
at the cards and I'm just like, I mean, I'm proud of you for entering the event with a deck like that, but it's literally just like 10 mines.
No,
Like,
it was
better
mine
have it.
and D-Barrier. Like, that was the deck.
Yeah, it's just I thought it was weird because I know D Barrier and like Sanctum and stuff has always been sided in striker decks, but it's weird to see one turn Floodgates because striker has such a problem OTKing, right? So like
Yeah.
they're usually more on Floodgates that are continuous and they can rely on turn after turn until they kill their opponent. Which is it's one of the reasons Droll isn't very popular card in striker decks because striker isn't killing you next turn. So
you can't afford to trade the card advantage or tempo.
Yeah.
Any halfway decent player would recognize that like once you troll them, you just say pass. and be like, okay, I'm gonna have 6 cards next turn to combo you, and now you have 1 less card to try and make a board.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, it's interesting that committing 6 cards to D barrier in the main ended up working as well as it did, and I think most of that is because they also committed 10 cards to mine. They had 3 demise, 1 metaverse, 3 mine, a terraforming. I think that's 9 cards or 8 cards there. So
I mean, they also had 3 pots to dig for it, but
yeah,
Granted, I probably wouldn't lump Sanctum in the same category as D Barrier, just because like D Barrier has the capability against Despia to at least go 1 for 1. Or like I can chain D Barrier to Brand Infusion and you're down a card.
that's true.
But like, the Sanctum, I do agree. It helps play through things like Twin, Storm, those kinds of cards that are popular. But like if they just pass, right, you need like an exceptionally good hand to beat your opponent next turn, or you need another Floodgate version to stop them another turn in order to hit like a 5300 range for an access code, which isn't super viable. Which is why I guess like pivoting to the mind strategy of like I can just high attack poke you like 6 times, then you die. So
If no one else has anything to say about Striker, I'd like to talk about like a bigger issue for a second with the finals winning deck.
Talk
Yeah.
about Mystical Mind.
Yeah, I think it's time to talk about banning all floodgates.
I'm here for that.
yes,
Sign
I'm
me up.
on board.
Okay, you're on like the. I'm inclined to disagree with that, but I do agree with the idea of mine. I don't like floodgates that have self-protection towards their own answers. Right. That's why IO was such a problematic card. Was because like IO not only was this a floodgate, all of the answers to IO were typically spells. Where mine, like mine's out, like you just blank a card type. Where
cards like that shouldn't be illegal.
now, if you want to talk like another specific card, I don't know, like Skill Drain or Rivalry, I would be more hesitant on eliminating those from the game because I think those have a place. But when you have floodgates that significantly minimize the kinds of outs you can have to those cards, that's when it becomes very problematic. I'm glad that everyone's playing mine now because like everyone just plays mine until it gets banned. And if you see like every deck playing 3 copies of it, like it's gonna be an issue. Where it's like, I mean, the card's been out for 3 years. It hasn't been banned yet or limited because it's just it sees like relatively fringe play up until now. Where I just think everyone's just gonna have 3 copies of that in their main and side deck combined.
I mean,
I just know mine was. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I just feel like mine, specifically mine. Like we can table the all floodgates ban discussion and talk specifically about mine. When it came out in Dark Neostorm right before 2019 Nats, everyone knew this card's going to be crazy. Like, and obviously Kody still won nationals with Thunder that year, and mine was relegated to second class citizen status in terms of like cards that are really good. But every time it got put on the field, it was a problem. And much like IO, it remained a problem every time it got played, even if it wasn't like in everyone's deck. Like decks that felt like they could play it it's always been on the list of cards that could go into your side deck. As a combo deck, as a control deck, any deck can realistically put Mystic Mine in the deck because of the way modern deck building works.
But the fact that made it like mine such a like bad card for the game was that combo can play it, and you're gonna have to put in more bad cards to respect it.
Yeah, that was always the worst part. Like, when you see like Danger Thunder going second, and they sided out Sekkas, and they just put 3 mine in, which is like I just don't have it out because like who's gonna keep Twin or Cosmic in for this random card that you might play
against my 4 negate monster board, or like even in the Orcus deck where they ran Mystic Mine, like you don't want Twin Twister or like cards like that to be in your deck, especially when they have main deck outs to Twin Twister like Crescendo.
Yeah, I think mine's a problem. I've been advocating for the banning of um, all floodgates is typically how I say it. Maybe somebody will come up to me and be like, "Hey, I bet I can convince you that this floodgate is healthy for the game," and I might agree with them. But for the most part, I've been advocating for the removal of all floodgates for quite a while. Um, I think it's unfortunate that Konami's answer to degenerate combos has been degenerate floodgates. Um, but I think floodgates suck. And I like even like one turn like lingering floodgates. I hate them all. I hate Lancia. I hate Droll. I hate Dweller. Um, I want them all gone.
Yeah, I
And
think all floodgates and like cards like Shifter should be gone from the game.
yeah, Shifter's one of those too. I classify that as a floodgate, even if it's
Yeah.
only for one turn or 2 turns, I guess.
It,
So
it's a card that literally auto wins the game by itself.
taking the pendulum swing in the opposite direction, my question to you would be, if mine is banned, right? What kind of concessions are placed on the ban list as a result of that? Because I feel like Maxi is kind of like the not Maxi. Mine is like the TCG equivalent of like Maxi right now, where like you can afford to keep very powerful cards still in the game due to the fact that this card like checks those cards, right? You can play an all-in super heavy combo deck if you want, but you better have an out to mine in your deck, or else you're going to lose, right? So I think with the removal of mine, you might see the removal of other potential powerful cards in the meta to balance that, combat that. Because I feel like if you just take out mine, we got rid of a problem, but mine was a solution to another problem, and it doesn't seem like we have that kind of solution to that other problem.
Yeah. I haven't gone through a list of like legal cards and like repercussions for what would happen if just tomorrow all floodgates or pseudo floodgates or anything that says for at least
No.
one turn you cannot play the game. I haven't like really gone through the repercussions of what would happen if all of those cards were banned. I assume that it would be kind of crazy if the only interactions for hand traps you had on your opponent's turn were one for ones like Ash, Ogre, Bell, Valor, Imperm, um, or if like you didn't have any like extra deck monsters that were pseudo floodgates like Dweller, or I would even classify the Herald of Perfection in this too. Multiple Omni negates from one monster um, is a pseudo floodgate. Um, I'm going first combos would probably run a little rampant, and powerful like combo starters would need to get hit for that, or like extra decks that like make these combos possible, like Hulk. Hulk would need to go. 100%. I think Hulk probably should have gone already. But so like things like that, yeah, there would be concessions that would have to be made. That's a valid
I
point.
mean,
But
I think
I think
that's
I'd be willing to
fine.
make them.
Yeah, it's more than fine.
So I have to wonder, is that exactly a one-to-one comparison? In so much as I don't know that the issue is combo decks going crazy so much as it's like modern deck building rules sort of prevent you from main decking outs to exactly Mystic Mine,
No,
right? Like, or it's not
combo
like
decks aren't really crazy.
the heuristics that we use to build our decks, like don't let us play like Cosmic Cyclone in our main deck.
Yeah, that's a valid point. I guess I was more thinking along the lines of um, if Droll was gone and Lancia was gone and Nibiru was gone and
Yeah,
Mystic
fair,
Mine
fair,
was
fair.
gone, um, I'm assuming there's probably some like heavy combo deck that can't be played right now because of those cards that are super high impact um,
Mhm.
that would be able to push through one or two one for one hand traps and still make like crazy end boards that are unbreakable for the most part.
Yeah, that's fair. That's
Um,
fair.
and I
The thing
think,
about
yeah, go ahead.
the thing about that is, I don't think Nib should be hit. I feel like Nib punishes players for like overextending, and it keeps combo in check. So I think floodgates can go. but you have cards like Dark Ruler, Droplet, Nibs still in the game to keep combo in check.
So I would have agreed with you like 3 years ago, but I think we're getting to a point where just like Nib isn't super good of a card anymore. Like the kind of things that have been releasing the past year has made it to where like Nib is only ever optimal or good against either a bad deck or a good deck's bad hand. I haven't over the past like year seen like any like super competitively viable deck that doesn't just beat Nib at some point in their combo now. And I feel like you need to kind of keep these kinds of cards that can potentially answer those decks that aren't Nibiru into the game. And I think the only answer to that right now are Floodgates.
But then you also have cards like Dark Ruler evenly and like Lightning Storm, a lot of the board breakers, which are sufficient enough sometimes. Like, because not every hand you're gonna have. The thing about combo is you're playing combo, but the trade-off is inconsistency. So if you have cards like Dark Ruler, Nib still in the game, like the deck has to have like absolute gas to be able to play through all of these cards. So if you take out Floodgates, like that allows combo to always like be able to play, so it doesn't give like control too much like unfair cards like Mystic Mine. But then you have cards that they can also play like Nibiru or Dark Ruler, which will also be let them be able to play against the combo decks.
As much as I have enjoyed this discussion, it's kind of devolved from Hartford a little bit, which is fine, which is good. But we're coming up on an hour, pretty quick. So, is there any other comments, thoughts people want to express about like the YCS or where we think the format's going to go from here? Or
I have one final thought about the YCS.
I'm here for it.
Okay. I hate Flu.
Oh my god.
Literally, I hate Flu.
Play around
I don't know. I don't know. That seems to be the only deck I ever lose to in like big tournaments. So
Is the deck's broke?
That's funny.
I wish I saw more.
What was that, Shu?
I wish I saw more Flunder. I didn't get to play any of them. They were buys to me. I have 4 Zombie War in my side and I never put them up.
Unfortunate.
Like I was so prepared for Despia, Sorcerer, and Flunder, and I get to play tons of random like adventure deck. Just by be all of them. But my side was barely put in use.
That sounds like unfortunate variance for you.
I mean, I was winning until I had to face Calvin, and then I went to hell afterwards.
Yeah, I saw that. That was unfortunate. You guys got paired up.
I hate that guy, Calvin.
Oh my god.
Calvin also just, like, I didn't draw any hand trap game 1 and 3, and Calvin just went, it's the biggest board he ever made in the tournament, probably.
oh,
Both 1 and 3.
you love that. You love to see that.
Like, game 1 and 3 were both 8-8-10 with the back row.
Oh, that's crazy.
Yeah, and a hand trap. I break everything, but I lost to that hand trap. Game 3.
Hate to see it.
Yeah, I'd like to say shout out to the guy who broke my car window. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for not stealing my bag in specific. But and thank you for having us drive home with a window down for 11 hours. That was
sounds
sick.
awful. I'm so sorry that happened.
And we like boarded it up, but it was still loud.
Yeah.
Shout outs to the 2 opponents that won the die roll and said I can go first. I wouldn't have been able to top without you.
Oh my god. All right. I think Calvin is listening and eating dinner, so we will wrap this up. Thanks for hanging out, guys. Thanks for going to Hartford.
Yeah, it was fun. It was a lot of fun.
The Poland's been killing me.
Oh, sorry. One last shout out. Shout out to Spirit Airlines for canceling my flight Thursday night and forcing me to buy a $500 plane ticket to Hartford Thank you,
Yeah.
thank you, Spirit.
It's a
I'll
very
definitely
expensive win
fly.
amount for you, Nick.
I'll definitely fly there again. Yeah, it was the best win amount. Yeah, if you want to buy the mat for $500, I'll sign it.
I'll
I'll
think
throw
about
a
it.
Rabina in it. I'll sign the Rabina too.
I'll think about it. I'll keep you posted. All right. Thanks, guys, and we'll see you next time. Have a good one.